Hello, welcome back to Technically F1. Now today we're going to be talking about something that I find very interesting and something that has been debated upon for many years. And that is the dream or the best F1 calendar that you could possibly have. Now the reason why this is significant is because I am designing my F1 helmets. As you know, I'm on about number 4 right now. And I need to have a calendar, and I need to each race if I'm designing race-specific helmets, so that's quite important for me. Now, rather than abiding by the normal calendar, which I really truly despise some of the races, mainly Russia, not because I have any prejudice against Russia, mainly because the race itself is a horrible race with very, very processional racing, no overtaking. I decided to create my own calendar. So, starting off with this, and I'll tell you first the race and whether it'll be in the day and the night. So the first two races are going to be the Australian Grand Prix and the Bahrain Grand Prix, and both of those races will be at night. Now, the Australian Grand Prix, they're trying to get that to go at night, but the Bahrain Grand Prix is already a night race. So starting off with 2 back-to-back night races, especially 2 of that caliber, is pretty much perfect to set off the season with a bang. The next race is going to be at Azerbaijan, the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, at the Baku City Street Circuit. Now that is going to be a day race, but we've seen some epic races there, mainly the 2016 one. That was considered to be one of the greatest races of all time, so I have to put it on this calendar. Truly a great race. Now the next race is the Monaco Grand Prix, race 4, Monaco. That is a race that, as many of you know, or those who know about F1, would know that it is one of the most historic races on the calendar. Very special for older F1 fans, and it's a great, very tricky race to race in. And it takes me ages to finish a race there. So it's always very special when you actually finish a race there in sim racing. Very good experience, that race. Now the next race, 5th race, is the Chinese Grand Prix. Now that is a track that I love, really, really fast track, epic track to race on. One of the best tracks for racing in the current F1 calendar. So that is race number 5. Number 6 is the Malaysian Grand Prix, a track that is not on the calendar as we speak, but is a great track, has seen great battles between some of the greatest of all time, Schumacher and Hakkinen and Eddie Irvine at one time. So some really excellent battles at the Malaysian Grand Prix. Next, number 7, Canadian Grand Prix at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Now that is an island circuit in the middle of an island. It is a engineering masterpiece, and it is, of course, a day race. You can't do that race at night. It had to be canceled once because there was so little light, and they don't have strobe lights there. So you need to be careful with that race. Number 8, 9, and 10 are the San Marino Grand Prix, the Italian Grand Prix, and the Spanish Grand Prix. Now, the tracks that they're at are Imola, San Marino, Mugello in Italy, and Jerez in Spain. 3 great tracks and all in the day. Now, there hasn't been a night race on this part of the calendar yet, but they're all really strong races that have been on the calendar for a little while now and have to be there pretty early. So the next one is the Monza Grand Prix in Monza, Italy. That is a day race, but that is a race where F1 cars go faster than any other time in the season. And right here you can see some footage of me actually driving a Ferrari at Monza. And you can just see the speeds are unbelievable that the car is traveling at. Faster than you'll see in the next footage. It's pretty incredible. Now the 12th race of the season is Valencia Grand Prix and the Valencia Street Circuit. Now that is going to be an epic Grand Prix because it is not only at night, but it's also at Valencia, one of the best street tracks F1 has ever designed. It was the scene of an incredible race in 2012 and has since been off the calendar for a little while, but it has to be back, and it has to be back in a night race. So Valencia is number 12. Number 13, 14, and 15 are the German Grand Prix, the European Grand Prix, and the Portuguese Grand Prix. The German Grand Prix is in the Nürburgring Grand Prix track. Sadly, not the Nordschleife, but you can't have it at the Nordschleife. It's way too dangerous. The European Grand Prix is at Hockenheim, and that's a day race along with the Nürburgring Grand Prix. And so is the Portuguese Grand Prix at Portimao. All 3 day races, but really great racing. We actually had the Nürburgring Grand Prix track back this year. That was a really cool race. And we had Hockenheim last year. So really proven racetracks, and that's going to be great races. Now the 16th and 17th races are both street tracks, and one is in the day, the Paris Grand Prix, and the London Grand Prix is in the night. And these are both tracks that are not on the calendar yet. They have not been approved for current racing, which is too bad, but it would be excellent if we could actually get on these tracks. And I've driven them in sim racing, so it's just a must. Now, the 18th race is the British Grand Prix, and that's in the daytime, and it has to be because it just wouldn't work. Having a night race at Silverstone would be sacrilegious in a way, and you just can't have it happen. But the next race is a night race at the Fuji Speedway in Fuji, Japan. That is a race that has seen unbelievable amounts of rain, and Lewis Hamilton won there in 2007. So a race that is truly crazy. The 18th and 19th races, the 20th and 21st races are both day races. The Belgian Grand Prix and the Hungarian Grand Prix. The Belgian Grand Prix is at Spa-Francorchamps. It can't be anywhere else. And the Hungarian Grand Prix is at the Hungaroring. Two tracks that just have to be on the calendar. You're a little bit crazy if you don't have them on your calendar. And they're both day races, along with the Austrian Grand Prix, which is race number 22. And that is in the day, and that's been the scene of some pretty epic recent battles and some technical trouble for Mercedes. And although not all of you will remember this year there was a huge gearbox problem on the Mercedes cars, and they had trouble even finishing the races, and that is something that you generally don't see with the Mercedes cars in this era, so that was quite special. Now, the 23rd race is the Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort. Now, that is a day race, and that is excellent. That entire track has been redesigned for the 2020 season. So it has to be, it wasn't able to happen this year, obviously, because of Corona. Oops, I shouldn't have said that. I'm about to get demonetized. But anyways, it is just an excellent track, and it has banking on it, and it is one of two tracks that you'll see that have banking on it. So that's the first one. The next one I'll tell you in a little bit. Now, the 24th race is the U.S. Grand Prix at the Boston City Circuit. Now, this track is in the day, the races, but this is not a track that has been fully approved yet. So it is a possible race, but it's just something too epic to pass off, and the helmet design for that race, I can tell you, will be quite special. Stay tuned for some lighthouses and some lobsters. Now, race number 25 is the French Grand Prix at Magny-Cours. Now, I hate Paul Ricard, the current place of the French Grand Prix. And you can say, oh, hate's a strong word, not for Paul Ricard. Paul Ricard does not deserve to be on any racing calendar, much less the most important one of them all, Formula One. So Magny-Cours, the race that used to be there in 2007-2008, travesty that it was taken off the calendar, has to come back. So it has come back on my calendar. Now, the 26th race is a new race that will be running at night, the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix at the Jeddah circuit. Now, this race is supposed to be for 2021, and I agree, I like the race a lot. I think it's an interesting track layout, and it's sort of cool. I like street races, but in the end, there needs to be a lot more track races than street races, so you can't have too many more than this. Now, the 27th and 28th races are both in the day. You have the Danish Grand Prix at Copenhagen City Circuit, and the Turkish Grand Prix at Istanbul Park. Now, we just recently had a Turkish Grand Prix, and it was excellent. You cannot doubt that this was a great race, and if you haven't watched the replay, you have to watch the replay. I recommend it. 2020 Turkish Grand Prix. Two great races, and the city Copenhagen circuit in the Danish Grand Prix, in essence, is a race that was supposed to happen in 2011, but there were some issues with the calendar that season, and they weren't allowed to have it, so it didn't happen. But now, coming up for number 30 is another track with banking. As I mentioned previously, it is the 30th race of the season at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in the F1 layout. Now, the F1 layout is something that was raced in 2001 through 2007. It was a pretty epic race. You'd see some pretty unbelievable racing with banked corners. We have not seen banked corners in a really long time, and it is time that we see them again. So that is why the Indianapolis Grand Prix has to be on the calendar. It would not be a calendar without a race like that. And number 31 is a race that, although it is not known as well as a race like Indianapolis, it is also loved with true F1 fans. The Korean Grand Prix. The Korean Grand Prix is at Yongam Circuit, and it will be at night. Now that track is very special because if what had actually been planned happened, it would have been excellent. There was going to be a city built around the entire track, and it just would have been one of the standout races of the time. However, the city was not built, but in this make-believe calendar, the city was built. So, yay. Now, the 32nd Grand Prix is at Hanoi City Circuit in Vietnam. Now, this is a day race, but I have driven this track in the F1 video games, and it is very fun. Have no doubt in your mind that this is a very fun track, and it's a good one. Now, the 33rd Grand Prix is at the Singapore Grand Prix track at Marina Bay, and that is also a night race. It's just an epic race. The Japanese Grand Prix and Brazilian Grand Prix are two fixtures that cannot not be on the calendar. They're just a must. If you don't have these races, you're pretty much condemning your season to be a bit crap, if I'm honest. And the final race is at Abu Dhabi. Now, we have not seen a lot of overtaking there in previous years, but it's a night race. The architecture is brilliant, and it's just an excellent track. It's very well kept, and it has to be on the calendar. Now, that is my 36 race calendar. There's a lot of races, and there would not be a summer break in the middle of it like there is right now. Now, I want you to tell me if you think I'm missing any tracks. Should I have more on my dream calendar? If so, do tell me in the comments. And quick warning, the footage you see in the background is all my footage. I just want to make that very clear. Wouldn't want to be demonetized for any reason for that. Yeah, and thank you for watching.